are so many delicious foods bad for our health? There were two things I never realized when it comes to sugar. One, how much sugar I had actually been consuming. Two, how seriously too much sugar can affect our health. From all the comments on my sugar cutting challenge video, the one thing that caught my eye the most was that many people feel cutting sugar out of their lives can feel almost impossible, much harder than we expect. But looking back on my journey, I realized there are better, smarter ways to approach it, and these things helped me a lot. So today, I'm sharing the real practical tips that work for me when I reduce my sugar intake. As I mentioned in my previous sugar cutting video, I didn't completely cut out foods such as pasta or rice. I still enjoy dessert occasionally, especially on special occasions like my trip to Spain. But on most days, I avoid added sugar, sugary drinks, cakes, and all those things that I used to love. This will be a Q&A style video where I answer some of the most frequently asked questions. Then later in the video, I'll also share the top 3 practical tips that made a real difference in my journey. Then let's get into it.
I'm trying to cut out sugar right now, and I feel like I'm dying. Does it get easier?
Yes, it does get easier. The first few weeks are usually the hardest. Just like when you're trying to give up any habit you've had for a long time. I still get tempted sometimes, but now I'm more like, why bother? It's not even good for me. I feel like I can move past the urge to crave sugar and redirect my focus to other things that matter more to me. Let me give you one example to explain what I mean. When I was little, I couldn't stand even one day when my mom wouldn't let me watch one of my favorite shows, Sailor Moon. But do I feel the same way now? Do I need to watch Sailor Moon every day? Not really. It would be still fun to watch, but as you can imagine, I've moved on. So I think the problem may feel like an addiction, but the solution is often growing out of it, little by little. So hang in there, it will get easier.
I always tell myself I'll only have a little, but after grocery shopping, I end up finishing an entire pint of ice cream, a whole bag of chips, or a full chocolate bar. How can I control myself?
Many people, including my past self, think that cutting sugar is all about using self-control once the food is already at home. But in many ways, the real decision happens at the grocery store. If you keep buying the same foods, the results will probably stay the same, especially in the beginning before your taste buds have had time to reset. So instead of relying only on willpower at home, start by changing your grocery list and what you bring into the house. And it works much better to set up a system rather than testing your willpower and trying to control how much you consume. I'll explain more about this later.
My sugar cravings go crazy whenever I'm stressed. What should I do?
Yes, during my own sugar cutting journey, I realized just how closely sugar cravings can be connected to our emotions and stress levels. I still enjoy the occasional treat, but now that I'm out of the woods, I feel like I'm in the driver's seat instead of letting my sugar cravings take control. That's why it's important to find other ways to cope during stressful moments. For example, you could move to a different room and step away from whatever triggered the stress. Go outside for a walk or run. Look up at the sky. Make yourself a cup of tea with a little honey as an alternative. Or brush your teeth to freshen up. It really helps. What works will be different for everyone because we're all different. But make sure to find at least one go-to redirection tactic that helps you release your stress instead of automatically reaching for something sugary.
I quit sugar and reset my taste buds, and I was surprised by how incredibly sweet everything tasted afterward.
Okay, so this is not really a question, but I wanted to include it here because I resonated with it so much. And I also wanted to share it as an encouragement. After your taste buds reset, especially if they've been overloaded with sugar for a long time, you can finally begin to notice and appreciate more subtle, unique flavors again. This is exactly why cutting sugar gets easier over time. Now, when I eat a piece of cake that's too sweet, I often feel like I can't even finish one bite. Your taste preferences really do change.
Is it better to quit sugar cold turkey or reduce it gradually?
For this one, I can't speak for everyone because I think what works best can be different from person to person. I didn't cut out sugar entirely. I started by removing foods in my red zone, and now I'm gradually working on the foods in my yellow zone. When it came to added sugar in things like soda, I did stop drinking it cold turkey. However, one thing that I learned is that constantly testing your willpower is not a very reliable solution. For me personally, simply reducing the amount, like having one donut instead of a whole box of donuts, doesn't really work. Because honestly, if something tastes really good, I know it's hard for me to stop in the middle. The better solution for me was either to raise my standard for dessert so high that I naturally wanted to stop after one bite, or to create a system or an environment where I simply didn't have access to more. So, in practice, what I did was make a list of the things I could live without and cut those out completely. For example, I don't drink soda anymore. But for the things I felt I couldn't give up entirely, such as matcha lattes, I set a specific day, time, and my own rule for when I could enjoy them, like how many teaspoons of maple syrup I would use when making one.
What do you do when there is social pressure to eat sweets?
For this question, one of the replies I saw made me laugh. Someone said, I tell people who offer me sweets on special occasions that I have diabetes. Then they stop offering. That is a smart and bold approach. I understand that some of you may be thinking, why is that so hard? Just say no. For example, my husband would probably just politely say no without any hesitation. On the other hand, for some people like me, refusing can actually feel like a very difficult situation. Personally, what I used to do was this. If someone offered me a piece of cake on an important occasion, I would accept it politely, maybe pretend to take a tiny bite, continue the conversation, and then naturally put it down when they weren't looking. However, as I approach my 40s, I've realized that people usually don't take it too seriously when you refuse. As long as you show respect and gratitude, especially if you have a good and authentic relationship with them, it usually shouldn't be a problem. If they react in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable simply because you refused a piece of cake, then you have no reason to feel bad about taking care of your health.
What about the natural sugars in fruits?
During my research, I discovered that even healthier sugars, like fructose from natural fruits, may be better than refined white sugar, but they can still raise our blood sugar and insulin levels. However, because whole fruits contain fiber, they are generally not as concerning. I usually choose fresh fruits instead of dry fruits, and I try to avoid fruits that are overly sweet or overindulge.
How do you manage your sugar cravings during your period?
It really is an extra challenge every month, so I totally hear you. When my periods hits, my schedule and motivation definitely gets shaken up too, both with my sugar cutting challenge and my exercise routine. During that time, I still try to do as much as I can, even if it's not as much as I usually expect from myself. Of course, it's important not to let everything completely fall apart, but I've noticed that it helps so much when I choose self-compassion during temporary setbacks or speed bumps, rather than self-criticism or resentment. It's okay to move a little slower than you expected, so try to be more gentle with yourself during those more challenging days. And when you're ready, just pick things back up and continue enjoying the journey again. You know, long-term success usually looks more like an upward line with constant fluctuations, rather than a perfectly straight upward line. Important practical tips. 1. Know your unique triggers for cravings. There's an old Chinese saying, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. In the same way, knowing what triggers your sugar cravings is an important step. For example, one of my triggers is Korean spicy food. When I eat something like kimchi jjigae, I suddenly crave something sweet afterward. Now, what I do is get up and brush my teeth. I'm not sure if this comes from a long-time habit from my childhood, but it really helps me. The point is, you need to be able to write down specifically what your trigger is and when it usually happens. 2. Eat your protein first. People often focus on cutting out the things that are not ideal for us, but we should also need to focus on what we should consume more of, healthier alternatives. When you eat more protein, your cravings for sugary desserts can decrease. Also, eating protein or healthy fat first can also be helpful for avoiding blood sugar spikes because it slows down carbohydrate absorption. These days, when I want to chew on something or my mouth feels bored, I eat something like a boiled egg, pumpkin seeds, or lightly salted chickpeas. I know what you're thinking, but once you get the hang of it, it actually tastes better than it sounds. 3. Make the desserts yourself at home. As a family, we've turned occasional baking days into a special bonding activity where we make our favorite s'mores cookie recipe together. It has become such a wonderful quality time with the kids. It's also a great way to have more control over the ingredients and sweetness level compared to buying sugary desserts outside. I understand it may sound contradictory that I'm cutting sugar while still making cookies at home, but we only do this with the kids about once a month, and surprisingly, this has actually helped us cut down on sugar because we stopped buying packaged sweets when grocery shopping. Like I said, the success of cutting sugar is often determined at the grocery store. That being said, I really encourage you to have a hobby you enjoy. I mean, this could be another whole topic to talk about, but the point is this. It's almost impossible to simply cut out something out of our lives without replacing it with something better. Whether it's a healthy activity, quality time with your friends and family, or better food choices, when we begin filling our lives with better things, our cravings for sugar can slowly melt away. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in my next video.